So come on. Hey, wait a minute, bitch. Why don't you go find one of your own? Now you wait a minute. This is none of your business. Listen, Skinny, before you start talking tough, I better warn you, I got a black belt in karate. So why don't you get out of here quietly? You still got some teeth left in that ugly face. So come on. Hey, wait a minute, bitch. Why don't you go find one of your own? Now you wait a minute. This is none of your business. Listen, Skinny, before you start talking tough, why don't you get out of here quietly?
Listen,
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
We're dead, you know that? What did you do, huh? How could you fucking do this to us? I fucking loved you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh. Oh. Oh my God. Oh my God, what are we gonna do?
It's like something out of a cartoon. A beekeeper in the East Mountains woke up to find his hives had been ransacked again.
Across 106th Street, pushers won't let the junkie go.
All right, I hope that you guys enjoyed that video as much as I did making it. And to be honest with you, I think it was very therapeutic doing it. I was really hoping to reach a large audience with it. So please, I put that video out and you can help me by sharing it. And that's how we kind of spread the channel with obviously sometimes you have to use humor and satire, and sometimes we're going to talk about some serious issues. So again, so we're talking about the reaction to the Mueller report, and it's not as if the media didn't have enough time to come up with an actual legitimate way to make their landing softer. And that's really their fault. It's the fault of all these corporate leaders, all of these quote unquote journalists, all these editors, producers. They should have long ago reached a certain reckoning and acceptance that perhaps Robert Mueller isn't going to deliver to them a political goal that is determined by them and their corporate overlords and their investors and their advertisers. This conclusion leaves a landscape that's a bit confusing, in my opinion. So we're going to talk a little bit about the way going forward. This is not going to be a very long stream because I just don't have enough time today. Next week, I'm going to have certainly more time to do more projects. So hopefully, first of all, we're going to have a stream probably on Monday at 6:30 with a person who is active in the Blexit groups. I think she's active both in the Blexit community, or she's at least a supporter of it. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the Mueller report. So welcome to everybody, Will Mann and D.I. Freighter. So what's really going on with the Democratic Party and the president since the Mueller report? Well, people are twisting the outcome and trying to say that non-prosecution does not mean exoneration, when in reality, exoneration is now almost impossible because events get in the way. The fact is that the sentence that they keep using in order to claim that Trump knew he was guilty was one where he said, "Oh no, I'm effed. This is the end of my presidency." When in reality, he went on to say that whenever a special counsel is appointed, it basically ruins a president. That's kind of what happened to some of these people. For example, President Clinton, his presidency had a special counsel that stretched pretty much from 1994 until the end of his presidency. You have, of course, President Nixon. His presidency was ended by it. And you have President Trump now. Auspiciously, there was never a special counsel to deal with President Bush, but I'm sure back in the day some people would have wanted it. The fact is that they never followed up on it. 1 second. So I think that really, sorry, I'm screwing around here. What are we going to talk about now? So impeachment, you would have thought, is completely off the table now. Steny Hoyer, who is he's the House Majority Leader, has claimed that impeachment is off the table. I don't have articles today just because I got home and I'm not prepared to really make this one of the more deep dive live streams. But Steny Hoyer from Maryland has taken impeachment off of the table. And the people who are now promoting the impeachment directive are Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ilhan Omar, I think, is part of it. And that sort of sums up the real direction of the Democrats right now. So you have some of the Democrats, Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler, they can't commit to impeachment now because, unfortunately, the report didn't give them the damning conclusion that they wanted. So they're going to now use the report as a basis to basically grind it down even more and call a lot of these witnesses back to Congress to testify. And they were already this is something they were already laying the groundwork to months ago once they took over as the House committee chairs. And they started to prepare subpoena lists of people, including, by the way, Jay Sekulow, who is President Trump's personal attorney. By the way, I think at the end, what are they going to do when Jay Sekulow will be able to claim attorney-client privilege because he wasn't involved with Donald Trump during the 2016 election. So unlike Michael Cohen, there's nothing where he can be investigated for where they could claim, we need to impeach, we need to remove the attorney-client privilege of Jay Sekulow because, he happened to be involved in some of these meetings. Michael Cohen, this is part of the Mueller report that I did read. Michael Cohen was involved in some of the meetings that were, at issue during the Mueller report. You have Info Terrorist saying, "Happy Bicycle Day, thanks." I wish I could ride my bike. It's rainy as all hell out here. So, we're talking more about the path forward for the Democrats. You're now going to see this impeachment narrative being promoted by a number of the hardcore progressive Democrats, whether it's Ocasio-Cortez or Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar, and some of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus like Al Green and Maxine Waters. But unfortunately, that's not going to be a winning strategy. First of all, the people remember, you need over 217 members of Congress in order to pass impeachment, or obviously if there's members absent, you could be able to pass it in a smaller quorum. But it doesn't look likely that that'll happen because there are plenty of Democrats who won seats in very neutral areas. And, not neutral, but moderate areas, suburban areas. And they're not looking to lose their seats over an impeachment proceeding that would likely fail in the Senate trial. This is something that Democrats don't really understand. You can impeach a president in the House, and then they're not removed from office. They still have to be tried by the Senate, and the Senate has the evidence presented before them, and then they have to vote 2/3 of them to remove the president from office. And at the moment, the Republicans control the Senate, and there's no reason why they would. Why would the Republicans ever remove Donald Trump from office when he's basically caused a revival of much of the party in some parts of the country. In some communities, the Republican Party never even had any presence, and now it does. And, you know, to be fair, there's parts of the country where the Republican Party was probably stronger back when, you know, obviously the Bushes and the McCains were around, and they're less strong now. Those would be the areas where those Democratic congressmen and women were elected last year, and they're not going to earn any friends by proceeding. You see, the Never Trump movement. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. So you have some of these clowns are still banging on the impeachment drum because they've already lost all the credibility that they once had. So why would anybody care now? You know, they're putting forward this. Let me see here. This ad. You're going to see this in a second. So
President Trump says the Mueller report showed
there was no obstruction. It was a complete and total exoneration.
But some on Fox News disagree.
Robert Mueller's report does not clear President Trump of obstruction of justice.
He outlines a case for obstruction and then in plain text says it's up to the Congress.
It did show a venal, amoral, deceptive Donald Trump instructing his aides to lie. That's not good in the President of the United States.
So again, this does not. So they're trying to read into the Mueller report, and Andrew Napolitano is it's very confusing why he suddenly jumped on this. So you have some of the super ideological Republicans like you know, Ben Shapiro and people like that saying, "Oh, he's evil and he's not behaving well." I'm just looking at this retarded reply somebody gave to me on Twitter. By the way, Twitter, I'm hoping it basically falls apart in the coming months or so, because a lot of people who for months, a lot of people were staying on Twitter because of the Mueller time thing, and they've been taken, all their whole reason for being on it has been taken away. So there's going to be a lot of people who are generally going to you know, they're going to retreat from this for a long time, and you're not going to see them really take an active role on social media because there's nothing to wait for. You know, are they really going to start listening to these committee hearings? And in some cases, the news is going to really it's just going to get worse and worse for them. There is more and more credible news coming out that some of the people who were part of the intelligence community, you know, the deep state that were involved in launching the Mueller report, are going to be investigated very thoroughly over the next, or starting next month, apparently. I believe it's supposed to start next month. In fact, I've heard May 5th is supposed to be a pretty big day for that. So the Democrats, the people who they're going to have to shift gears, and some of the people aren't, their energy is going to be already just wasted over following Robert Mueller for 2.5 years and getting nothing. What are they supposed to do? So let's say you have James Comey indicted for perjury. He did lie before Congress a number of times, and he also for leaking, things like that. A lot of these people don't even like Comey anyway. And when Comey's indictment leads to issues where, you know, you have Comey, you have Clapper, you have John Brennan. All of them have made statements to Congress in the past that could be perjurious, and when they start to reveal some of the things that were involved in creating the probe and the ways it ties back to the Obama administration, then you're going to see a lot of these people, you know, start to claim, "Oh no, we're going and we're doing a witch hunt now. I thought the Republicans don't want a witch hunt." Well, the difference is now that you're having people that were involved in an actual conspiracy. They're going to be confessing to actions that they did take, not people that are going to be talking about discussions of things that they might have done, like in the Trump investigation. Talk about building a tower in Moscow that never happened. That's really where, if you're focusing on something that never ended up happening, as opposed to things that did end up happening, you don't really know what the priority is. And most people really didn't care in the end. I think there are still going to be forever people that believe that Donald Trump colluded with Russia, even in the absence of any evidence. Freighter says, I never had a Twitter account or Facebook. You can have a full life without them and still be well informed. Well, maybe I should have followed your example. Twitter really is a horrible, horrible place. It's a waste. It's very difficult to grow now if you're shadow banned, as many people are. I am for sure shadow banned. In any case, so the impeachment battle that's coming up, because the House is still in control of the Democrats, you're going to have some of these investigations. They're going to be a tremendous eyesore. Adam Schiff's credibility has really eroded with much of the country. Almost no one really has the patience, or CNN's ratings are going down. MSNBC's ratings are going down, but they're not lowering the fire. They're actually putting more fuel into it, trying to generate more rumors that Robert Mueller, the mildest thing I've seen in the past couple of days is, for example, Robert Mueller punted. So it says, this is from the New York Post. I'm gonna have to switch screens here, but somebody wrote, Mueller completely dropped the ball with obstruction punt. And this is from Andrew McCarthy. He said, the most remarkable thing about special counsel Robert Mueller's 448-page report is how blithely the prosecutor reversed the burden of proof on the issue of obstruction. To be sure, President Trump's conduct outlined on the score isn't flattering, to put it mildly. For example, the special counsel's evidence includes indications that the president attempted to induce White House counsel Doug McGahn to fire the special counsel in June 2017, and then in January 2018 to deny that the president had made the request. So yeah, there's issues there that Mueller's report further suggests that the president dangled pardons. He made ingratiating comments about Manafort, blah 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 blah. Final paragraph. That's what's important. If special counsel Mueller believed there was an obstruction offense, he should have had the courage of his convictions and recommended charging the president. Since he wasn't convinced there was enough evidence to charge, he should have said he wasn't recommending charges, period. Anything else was and is a smear. Worse than that, it flouts the Constitution. So I think that's something that most people would agree on. The Mueller report really came up short for a lot of the people who were, trying very difficultly. They were basically they were counting on this to redeem their whole worldview over the past couple years, and it did not work. In fact, it very much it backfired. You're going to see part of the Democratic Party spiraling into an oblivion of conspiracies and recriminations and accusations and things like that. So yeah, the Mueller report soon when impeachment articles are brought to the floor and a number of Democrats vote against them and impeachment fails, that's another victory for Donald Trump. Then you get to the area where some of the people who were very much for impeachment, Maxine Waters, you have Adam Schiff, you have Eric Swalwell, you have Gerald Nadler. Those people are going to be dealing with, a backlash within their own party from people who will say, well, you wasted our time, and you also were saying a lot of things to us that at the time you said you were sure there was evidence of collusion. There's evidence that you can't reveal at this moment. Well, how come it just didn't work? How come you leaked so many other things? How come you didn't leak what you said was the damaging information? Because I'm sure that some of the indictments that are upcoming will have to do with leaking. And then the question will become if there was so much leaking and some of the people who were leakers were the people accusing President Trump of impeachment, then why didn't they leak the actual evidence of collusion? And then you're going to have some real tough conversations about that. Beyond that, so the 2020 race apparently is going to heat up next week. Joe Biden is likely to announce his candidacy next week, which certainly complicates the race. Joe Biden will grab a lot of the vote share, and he already is in the polls, from people like Kamala Harris and even I'd say Peter Buttigieg and who are the other clowns that are running? You have Beto. But Joe Biden is going to make the race much harder for some of these smaller candidates to run because he's automatically going to be, he's going to be at a huge advantage. Name recognition. He was vice president for 8 years. He's never committed to not taking PAC money. The establishment of the Democratic Party will probably kiss his ass more than anyone else. He does have some weird stories, but none of them are, goofy, retarded stories about eating dirt like Beto. So he's going to have a huge advantage in terms of that. And meanwhile, what he can do, this is something that you guys should remember. People are saying, especially some of these progressives, they're saying, well, in all these polls, Bernie Sanders will defeat Donald Trump. First of all, in some polls, I've seen it the other way around. The other thing you have to remember is that I actually saw this article yesterday where there was a quote from the British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan, where somebody asked him, how do you think your policies could end up changing while you're Prime Minister? And he said, events, my dear boy, events. and what that means, and that's like a nice flippant answer, but it means that you can have very strong, hard beliefs about certain issues, but when you have to interact with people and actually present them and hear their responses, things end up changing. That's why this ridiculous situation where people are talking about Ann Coulter apparently said she would possibly work to elect Bernie Sanders if he went back to his immigration position. That might be one of the most ridiculous things I've heard the whole week, and maybe next week we'll go into that. Today we don't have any time for that, but what I'm saying is that Bernie Sanders originally did hold a position that border security was important in order to preserve labor conditions for the workers already here. Meanwhile, since then he's sort of softened his position. He's not open borders, but he certainly talked about amnesty. He's talked about a pathway to citizenship. He's talked about a lot of accommodations in order to allow a lot of these illegal aliens to remain in the country. So yeah, events have changed Bernie Sanders' point of view because the rest of the Democratic Party has worked on him and pressured him and worn him down, and now he's not quite open borders, but he's certainly no border hawk like a lot of people would want him to be, and that's something that he should be held account for. He's given into the establishment on that. That's something. If people want to say, well, Bernie Sanders, he's an anti-establishment candidate, why is he supporting the establishment on the border, on letting in more illegal aliens? Okay, so what's going to happen is once these people actually have to face each other on stage, and you're going to have sniping, and you're going to have Kamala Harris attacking Beto, and Beto attacking Julian Castro, and you're going to have Castro attack. By the way, to run for president of the United States with Castro as your last name might not be the best choice. But then you're gonna have all these people trying to get attention and the limelight. It was the same thing in 2016 with the Republican race and Chris Christie fighting with Marco Rubio. The same thing is going to happen here, and it stands to Joe Biden's advantage. And there's a few people that will probably start to nibble at Bernie Sanders and hurt his the coalition of progressives around him. Because yes, there's a lot of people who are very loyal to him. They're going to continue donating money like retards to him. But the truth is that Bernie Sanders has lost some of his followers to a number of these other candidates. And we're going to talk about those candidates in the 4 or 5 minutes left. You have Andrew Yang, whose economic ideas are certainly an attraction for a lot of these students who are in debt and blue collar workers. He's a direct threat to everybody within Bernie Sanders' progressive coalition. Then D.I. Frater says Bernie has talking points that have not changed, and when challenged, he deflects and projects. No, he has changed on immigration. That's exactly on immigration and on Russia. So we're getting to all that. So Bernie Sanders' policy as far as the border is one area where certainly, a lot of people who might otherwise agree with him are not going to support him if they believe in border security. Gun rights is another area where he's really given ground. Unfortunately, for if you're a gun rights Democrat, there's almost no room for you in the party. So you're not going to have a pro-gun candidate for president in the Democratic Party. You're not going to have a pro-life, and you're not going to have a hard border security advocate at all. Whereas in the past, you did. In the past, Barack Obama campaigned for creating barriers on the southern border. So I keep having to allow these comments, so I don't know why YouTube keeps screwing with me. But in any case, so that's as far as Andrew Yang. He has a lot of the bona fides in order to draw away Bernie Sanders' economic supporters. Then, hey Larry, too bad you joined pretty late, but I'm about to wrap up. Then you have Tulsi Gabbard, whose anti-war credentials are much stronger than Bernie Sanders. To my knowledge, first of all, Bernie Sanders did support foreign aid going into Venezuela, which, by the way, those who say, it was foreign aid was made in order to bring Venezuela to its knees or smuggle in weapons. Venezuela just accepted foreign aid from the International Red Cross, and at the time they were saying, well, we don't need foreign aid. So the anti-war far left people who are saying, well, Venezuela is just fine. Well, why are they accepting aid now? But in any case, those people are not going to support Bernie Sanders to the degree that they once did, because Tulsi Gabbard is much more of a hard-liner than Bernie Sanders as far as non-interventionism is. She did visit Syria. She did a lot of things that Bernie Sanders was not willing to do in the past 2 years in order to bolster her anti-war credibility. Who else do you have on the progressive side? Well, you have Mike Gravel. And we're going to be talking about Mike Gravel sometime in the next few weeks. We're probably going to do a profile on him. He's a very interesting candidate, a very sincere candidate. And the real danger to Bernie Sanders is if Mike Gravel goes on stage and starts to talk directly about Julian Assange. And this is something that we're going to have to bring up. If he can get on the debate stage, which I believe he would probably start to, I think that at the moment, the threshold is 65,000 individual donors. The DNC might end up changing that in order to keep out candidates like Yang and Gravel, but to keep Bernie Sanders in because he gives them at least the aroma of diverse thinking, okay? So if Mike Gravel gets on the stage and he starts to shout and to make and wag his finger at all the candidates, including Bernie Sanders, about Julian Assange and about the war in Yemen and about the new Cold War with Russia and about, to some degree, a new Cold War with China and about Venezuela and about all these other issues where these candidates have not been, have not been progressive enough. That will be a huge embarrassment to the DNC. They don't want even the merest mention of Julian Assange or WikiLeaks in a positive light, given what happened in 2016. So they will now look at Mike Gravel as the biggest threat to having a successful campaign in 2020. You have Mike Gravel and Tulsi Gabbard. They're a huge threat. Andrew Yang to some degree also. I believe Andrew Yang has already committed to endorsing the eventual nominee, whereas Mike Gravel probably wouldn't. But yeah, that's about it. I think that you're going to see a lot of these fissures come to the surface during the debates. You're going to see certainly Joe Biden getting attacked by some of these people to the far left. You're going to see the mainstream media try to cover for him. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is going to be fighting with some of the people who are further to the left of him, as well as some people like Kamala Harris who are going to be trying to draw away some of his voters. Also, the ADOS issue, if you guys have been following this channel, they're called American Descendants of Slavery. So the reparations issue has come to the surface several times already, and you have people like Cory Booker and Kamala Harris willing to pitch their campaign as the place to go in this, especially some of these southern states, South Carolina, Louisiana, those areas where they can maybe pitch that as a way to earn black voters. Those areas will be very difficult country for Bernie Sanders, given that at the moment he's rejected reparations in the model that the ADOS want. Elizabeth Warren's also talked about reparations. You have Marianne Williamson has very strongly talked about reparations. The reparations fight between these candidates is not going to be pretty and is probably going to end up harming one of them. All right, I do have to leave, so thanks again for joining me, and please like and share the stream. Also, let me see here. You can catch the media reaction compilation video that I made yesterday. I'm going to put the link here. I want you guys to really share it obnoxiously, share it to the degree that you feel ashamed of yourselves. Other than that, please have a happy holiday, whichever holiday you're celebrating. I'm celebrating Passover. If you're celebrating Good Friday and Easter, obviously enjoy it. And have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later.